This will be the last day on the 9/11 hijackers, and I'll be using the two PowerPoints here as I go about this screencast. We already are familiar with the Hamburg cell. Keep in mind, Hani Hajor. This was the pilot that crashed into the Pentagon, or the hijacker. And Hani Hajor, according to the 9/11 Commission report, this individual was a last minute change for bin Laden. This individual was in the United States during the 90s. He was trying to obtain his pilot license. And just like the Hamburg cell members, he was familiar with Western ways. And as a result of that, one of the reasons why bin Laden had selected him. Also, keep in mind, 2 years before 9/11 attacks, Mintar and Hazmi, these two individuals were in the United States. So you have three 9/11 hijackers that are located in the United States before the 9/11 attacks. And as we mentioned in the other screencast, part one, both of these individuals attended a high level Al Qaeda meeting that the CIA was aware of. This individual right here is interesting because he may or may not be a Saudi operative. And this guy, as it says here, he was meeting Muslim and Arab men in San Diego, and he was helping them with mosques and places to live and things like that. So there is speculation that this guy was assisting these two individuals, whether or not he was aware that they were going to be part of the 9/11 attacks. I have no idea. I guess that is something that is being disputed by Saudi Arabia. The Hamburg cell, they start to arrive in January of 2000. And remember, these were the three individuals that were in Germany. Keep in mind, Zaid Jara, this individual was viewed as an outsider in comparison to these two individuals as a result of, this guy being from Lebanese, and becoming a Muslim later in life, and, this guy being more of a party guy. Wanting one to more likely to drink, and somebody who was into women, which Muhammad Atta really did not seem to care much for females, unless they were of a clean nature according to his thought process. And Al Shehi, this guy was more of the religious book guy. So here's an image of Zaid Jara at flight school in the United States. Charlie's 5 times traveling outside of the US. He travels outside of the United States from 2000. Remember, he has a wife, and his wife has been looking for him. She's been contacting people at the Al Quds Mosque, and he has to go back because, the more she looks for this individual, she can't get in contact with them. It might be a situation where the German authorities start to look at the Al Quds Mosque, and then before you know it, might be able to determine that there's some sort of plot against America. This section right here, this is a exchange between his wife and Zaid Jara and Acel. And keep in mind as well, going back to the 9/11 hijackers, that Ramzi al-Shib, this guy was supposed to be the fourth hijacker, but he could not get into the United States. He was detained, which is why bin Laden was short a pilot and had to use Hani Hajor. Zachary Masai, this guy is interesting as well. He's in the United States, and he's trying to get enrolled in flight school. And Zachary Masawi, there is a belief that this guy was supposed to be one of the pilots as well. If you go back to the 4 flights, United 93 is the only one that has 4 hijackers. There's a belief that he was supposed to be the last hijacker, but he's not on the plane because the flight school instructor is a little concerned about this individual because he seems to be, angry. He's not really too concerned about taking off, just wants to know about flying the plane. And before you know it, the flight school contacts the authorities, and then they wind up looking at this guy's visa. So this guy gets arrested, which possibly is another reason why bin Laden, according to the commission report, decides they need to really step up this mission, because if this guy's arrested in U.S. custody, it might lead to other individuals. March 2001, as I said before, Jara's wife is looking for him, and they don't want, the people at the Al Quds Mosque do not want her to really get the authorities involved. So they keep telling Jara, hey man, you need to keep calling your wife because she's really going to possibly, bring the authorities to investigate. According to the 9/11 Commission report, some of the daily routine for the pilots, and I just look at this and it's like they're doing nothing out of the norm. They're waiting, eating at restaurants, shopping at the mall. Jara begins to take karate lessons. Great. Spring 2001, the muscle hijackers. So the muscle hijackers start to show up in 2001. Keep in mind, some have already been here, and this is just a little bit of the bio on these individuals, all in their early 20s, followers of Wahhabi Islam, and they really are individuals who, you know, can't really fit in. They don't know the language, which is why when they go to when they're asked questions on 9/11 by security officials, some of them don't speak English, they don't have their IDs, but yet they're still able to board the flights. Keep in mind, they also make their martyrdom video, July 8, 2001. Atta travels to Spain. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and bin Laden want the date moved up. Atta demands patience. Muhammad Atta returns, and the question is whether or not Zaid Jarrah is going to commit and be part of these attacks, which is why when we watch the Hamburg Cell movie, the way they portray him with tension with Muhammad Atta, again, it's going back to that 9/11 Commission report. Again, here going back to Zachary Massawi. Again, all of these notes come from the 9/11 Commission report. The book Perfect Soldiers. In 3 weeks, bin Laden is trying to figure out, well, when is this attack going to take place? And apparently, Atta sends a cryptic note, 2 branches and a lollipop, which if we reverse it, if we said 9/11, you would put the 9 and then 11, September 11th. But apparently, outside of the US, dates are done differently. The 11 comes first and then the 9. So he sends 2 dashes and a lollipop. The lollipop is a reference to 9. That is the 3rd week of August. And apparently that is the message that bin Laden gets to know when the attack is going to take place. September 10th, 9/11 hijackers are at Pizza Hut. This one is interesting too. Shihi, remember, he was the religious guy, and Al-Suqami, they price prostitutes. And this is September 10th, which is interesting. 9/10/2001, apparently at a Pink Pony nude theater. Somebody makes this particular announcement, and 9/10, one of the 9 Flight 93 hijackers goes to Nardone's, a go-go bar in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And how do they know that? Well, eventually the pictures of the 9/11 hijackers are released, and owners of these establishments, they contact authorities. Authorities confiscate security footage, and they get confirmation that these individuals, are the ones that participate. I always find it interesting that these individuals are so concerned about, purity of their religion and, following it according to Islamic law. Yet on the day before the 9/11 attacks, they're engaging in sin. They're engaging in acts that are just not pure according to their own religion. Jarrah gets pulled over for speeding, and he's given a ticket, and this individual is allowed to go. He writes to his wife, and she receives this after the 9/11 attacks, and that's a copy of his letter. Let's take a look at the 9/11 hijackers. This one, as we said before, here you have the lead guys, and then everybody else is considered a muscle hijacker. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, his initial plan to have 10 planes going into these targets. This is a excerpt from the 9/11 Commission report. If you're unfamiliar with, Al-Qaeda leadership, bin Laden provides the soldiers. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is the planner. And al-Zawahiri, who is the current leader of Al-Qaeda, this individual's role was to provide the soldiers. He was a Muslim Brotherhood member. And first 2 selected by bin Laden were these 2 individuals. They were Saudi nationals. And all 3 of these individuals had attended a high-ranking Al-Qaeda meeting that, that CIA knows, but does nothing about it. And here's talking about the safe house where these two individuals possibly have stayed. Talks about the Karachi training where they're concerned about English words and phrases, which again is why the Hamburg cell was picked for this mission. They've already addressed Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who may or may not have been involved in the uh, Al-Qaeda attacks in Africa on embassies. The Hamburg cell that we've talked about. English, familiar with the West. Bin al-Shia was the crime what he perceived to be a Jewish world conspiracy. If you look at some of Al-Qaeda's speeches and writings, they definitely are concerned about the what they perceive to be a Jewish world conspiracy. Zamar, we talked about him in the last screencast. This is the guy at the Al-Quds Mosque who's delivering a message. And pretty much these guys, the Hamburg cell members, they're all living in Germany. And according to the 9/11 Commission report, these individuals are trying to get into Chechnya to, help fight the jihad there. And they come across this individual, and it's just, again, it's a matter of chance. This guy sees them. He sees that they're speaking Arabic. He hears it. He starts talking to them, and before you know it, they're saying they're trying to get to Chechnya. And he says, "Hey, you need to go to Afghanistan. Go there if you really want to fight the jihad." And they listen, and before you know it, these individuals find themselves in an Al Qaeda training camp. Mintar and Hazmi are traveling, as I said before. They attend a high-level Al Qaeda meeting. Um, let's see, February 2000. Report from government agencies. September 2000, Americans will die within the next 4 years. So this is looking at like the Al-Qaeda threat and some of the things by the U.S. government and how they were, looking and reporting to the government with regard to a perceived attack by an organization called Al-Qaeda. As I said before, bin Laden picks Hani Hajor. These individuals are traveling back and forth. Traveling to Yemen. This guy winds up in Arizona, and again, they're able to travel. A recruit, I found this interesting. A recruit, this is the 9/11 Commission report. So Hani Hajor finds himself in Afghanistan, and he's given a questionnaire. And in the questionnaire, they find out that this guy has, experience flying commercial aircraft. So of course, bin Laden immediately puts this guy on the plane's mission. Spring 2000, all three of these individuals are in the United States. And then before you know it, the Hamburg cell shows up. So you have these three individuals in the US. You have the Hamburg cell showing up. And Khalid Sheikh Mohammed sends 115,000 for flight school. Remember, this guy can't get into the US. And they start to transfer money to pay for their flight school so they can learn how to do things like shut off the transponder and things like that. According to the instructor at Jones, the two were aggressive, rude, and even fought with him to take controls. Here they're talking about Muhammad Atta and Al Shihi. So imagine these poor flight instructors dealing with these two nut jobs here. The muscle hijackers, that's the name for the hijackers that show up from Saudi Arabia, July 2000. And then this chart, just looking at the leaders, the pilots, people coming from Saudi Arabia, from these two provinces. And again, bulk of the hijackers coming from Saudi Arabia. About the muscle hijackers, 5'5" to 7 inches in height. Mid to late 20s. This guy returns on the 4th of July. Think about it. He's able to travel freely back to the United States. Summer of 2001, the 9/11 lead hijack team is traveling throughout the United States, Boston to Las Vegas, and they're taking notes. What can they get on board the plane that doesn't get confiscated? When do the cockpit doors close? When do they bring out the food tray? And again, this is an excerpt from the commission report. Hani Hajor and Zaid Jarrah on a test flight. They want to travel through the Hudson corridor, and the pilot or the instructor takes them through this area. Again, they're doing a lot of training prior to the 9/11 attacks. Atta has the last meeting, and here it talks about some of their strategies. If you can't get it go directly into the streets. And Ben al-Shib, they're trying to figure out their targets. Remember this guy right here, Flight 93. This is the plane that crashes in Pennsylvania. And again, who knows what that target was. Otis starts to begin his ticket search and flights. I found this to be interesting. Boeing and Airbus, two plane manufacturers. Apparently, Airbus has a safety feature to prevent crashing. So he needs to make sure that he's getting on a Boeing flight. And he has to make sure that all of those tickets, so he's the guy purchasing these flights and doing all of the coordinating. August 7th, another trip to Vegas. These individuals are out, partying, taking notes. Freddie mentions the two branches and a lollipop. $26,000 gets sent back to Al Qaeda. That is a reference to money. I always find it odd that al-Shihi, this guy is trying to price prostitutes. He finds their prices too high, but he sent $26,000 back to Al Qaeda. Go figure. 2 months later, going back to the note. And that's it.